Good morning. Welcome to Pause for Thought number 8. I wonder if you recognize the name Merlin Carothers. He's a fairly well-known author, if perhaps more well-known amongst our older members. He was born in 1924 and only died fairly recently in 2013. If the name does ring a bell and you can't quite grasp it, if I said to you the book Prison to Praise, would you recognize him? He is a really easy read of an incredible collection of books that have now, at the time of his death, been translated into 56 different languages. And he was the first Christian writer to have 3 books at the same time in the top 10 best-selling list. But today we're going to be looking at his book called Are You Sitting Comfortably?, which I think you'll relate to quite well. It was the one he wrote in his retirement about a lesson that God taught him. So sit back and relax as we listen to the first little bit of Are You Sitting Comfortably? Ecclesiastes 4, verse 8. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? I woke up one day feeling the weight of every grey hair on my head. I was tired, bone tired. So I sank into a cushioned chair, put my feet up and began to count the reasons why I deserved to stay there. A calculator would have helped. My life had been long, full, and far from easy. Why? If I only counted my time in the service of my country, I surely deserved to be at ease for the rest of my life. First, there was World War II as an infantry soldier. Most of my friends in the 82nd Airborne Division hadn't even made it home after those terrible years of battle. Then, as a chaplain, there was Korea, the Dominican Republic, and Vietnam. Years of toil in bitter cold and boiling heat. Years of fighting fear, mosquitoes, bugs, and all kinds of diseases. Years of seeing death and destruction. Years of traveling non-stop, country to country, coast to coast. I began to add up all my long years of preaching and Bible study, preparation and services. Then there were the 10 books I had produced and seen through to publication. I had been working from morning till night, 7 days a week for most of my life. Yes, I had definitely earned time off for good behavior. So began my quest for rest. First, I discovered what it was like to work 6 days a week, 1 day off. That was great. Why hadn't I tried that before? Maybe I wouldn't have been quite so exhausted if I'd followed God's command to rest 1 day a week. In fact, I probably needed to make up for lost time. Since 1 day off hadn't caused any great calamity, I tried 2 days off each week. That was even better. Eventually, I worked my way up, or down, to 6 days a week off. Well, not really 6 days off. I worked at least 4 hours every day, but at a relaxed pace, and I enjoyed it. For the first time in my life, I got up in the morning when I felt like getting up. Pure luxury. Many people just dream of that day. I went to work when I felt like it. That's the way to work. And I left work when I felt like leaving. In spite of my comparatively easy life, I took note that I was still having a major impact on the world. I had my books translated and published in 36 languages. It wasn't really necessary to work constantly. Through the Foundation of Praise, I was able to send free books every month to thousands of prisoners, military personnel, and hospital patients. Yet I was only working at half speed. After all, I was old, grey-haired, and tired. I deserved to rest. And rest is far better, I soon discovered, when it is properly equipped. So my wife, Mary, and I bought 2 beautiful easy chairs, the kind with vibrators that soothe you to sleep. When I finished at the office early, I went home to do my spiritual exercises. An easy chair is a good place for relaxed Bible reading. Being a devoted man, I never failed to read at least a chapter a day. Then it was time to pray. Lord, I thank you for the wonderful life you have given me. Thank you for letting me live long enough to enjoy this time of rest. Thank you for a comfortable home, a beautiful and loving wife, healthy children and grandchildren. Most of all, thank you that I'm going to heaven. By that time, as you can imagine, I became quite drowsy and drifted off for my afternoon nap. And dozing off, I was completely unaware that I had become like the man Jesus talked about in Luke 12, verse 19. I will say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. When I awake, I congratulated myself for finding a variety of ways to enjoy the good life. For all relaxation is not done in easy chairs, you know. I had missed a lot of fun over the years. So I purchased the small plane I had always dreamed of having, a 200-mile-an-hour, fully instrumented Mooney. What a thing of beauty. What luxury. Punch in a few numbers into the computer and it would fly to any place in the United States, Canada, or Mexico. All my life I had wanted the time and opportunity to fly. Now I had it. Motorcycle riding was always another one of my favorite ways to relax. So I bought a Yamaha Virago 750. What a way to unwind. For exercise, I brushed up on my golf and prepared to enter the retiree class of men who love golf. They play 7 days a week, rain or shine, and that sounded good to me. After all, earning my livelihood had always taken 7 days. I had worked nearly every day of my life since I was 14 years old. Surely this old man had earned his rest and recreational rights. I won't fatigue you with my efforts to learn bridge. That is a game so challenging that I could play it constantly without ever getting bored. The point is, things were going well. I was throwing myself into rest and recreation with zeal. I had convinced myself that I deserved to be entertained. I had not been balanced in my work, and so to balance things, I would be equally unbalanced in my rest. Ephesians 5, verse 14. Wake up, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. One afternoon, I was lounging in my easy chair, sipping a frosty glass of iced tea, when I heard, Merlin, what are you doing? Startled, but not upset, I answered, Lord, I'm just sitting here thinking about all the good things you have done for me. You are a lukewarm Christian. I felt as if I were being picked up by my right ear and suspended in midair. God had my attention. Fear trembled through my body. Questions swirled about my head. Lukewarm? Me? How could that be? I had worked all my life and harder than most. But now was not the time to argue. Something was terribly wrong with me, but I didn't know what. God, what do you mean? I know your works. They are neither hot nor cold. I couldn't argue with that. Most of my life, my works had been what I would call hot. Work was second nature to me. Now I was an old man. I was over the hill, and surely it was time to rest. What do you want me to do, Lord? There was no answer. He had said what he wanted to say. The days that followed were long and anguished. Guilt filled my thoughts from morning to night. But strangely, I couldn't decide exactly what I had done wrong. I was lukewarm, no doubt about it, for the Lord had told me. But what should I do about it? Perhaps I should go back to preaching, but that seemed out of the question. Part of my burnout had been the near loss of my voice. Speaking for more than 10 minutes caused my throat to ache. Doctors determined that if I could go back and delete 40 plus years of preaching 2 or 3 times a day, my voice would be cured. Should I start a new church? That was the last thing I wanted to do, but whatever God wanted was going to have to take first place. Living with this conviction was far too painful. Examining my heart, I asked the Lord to show me where I had gone wrong. Memories, patterns of my Christian life began to surface. Seasons of intense spiritual zeal had inevitably been followed by times of pulling back. When I was less zealous, my joy always declined. What had caused these times of spiritual diminishment? I had thought I was simply resting. Had I relaxed my hold on some stabilizing truth or discipline? To my knowledge, I hadn't fallen into any sins, at least none that I could think of. After many tears and much fasting and repentance, the Lord answered my cries and spoke to me. Go back and learn how to pray. Lord, I haven't stopped praying. Yes, I have seen you praying in your easy chair. Pray like my son did. What did he mean by that? How did Jesus pray? My search began. What I discovered wasn't what I wanted to find out. Mark 1:35. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went to a solitary place where he prayed. After working 50 years to earn the right to retire, getting up in the dark wasn't an idea I wanted to nurture. 20 years of service as an army chaplain had shown me all the sunrises I ever hoped to see. Now I must relearn how, and apparently when, to pray. Unfortunately, it was beginning to sound like God was in the army too. Obediently, I said, Lord, please wake me up at the right time tomorrow so I can pray. Maybe he won't and I can sleep in. The next morning I awakened when it was still dark. Okay then, time to get up. Mary was still asleep, so I did my best to slip out of bed without disturbing her. This was the moment when I learned the difference between a young man getting up to pray at 4 a.m., as I had done years earlier, and an old man trying to do the same. Old joints don't slip, they creak, crack, and groan. Using the early morning braille system, I somehow got into my clothes and made it out the door. Jesus had gotten up and gone outdoors to pray, so that was what I needed to do. He sometimes went up into the mountains to pray, so I chose a hill that was behind our home. At the top of the hill, I paused and prepared to pray. Lord, I'm here, but I don't feel like praying. When I'm tired like this, how can I talk with you in the way that would please you? After a painful struggle, I gave up and went back home. Lord, this isn't going to work. I'm too old to pray like I used to. I don't have the youthful enthusiasm I once had. What am I to do? No answer. Back up the hill the next morning, cold, tired, confused, but I knew I had to keep up until the Lord showed me what to do. Morning after morning, I got up in the darkness and headed back up the hill. Often I was tempted to give up, and God was surely right about my lukewarm state, for my prayers were lukewarm. No matter how hard I tried to be filled with the Holy Spirit and His power. In Matthew 26:40-41, I saw something Jesus had said to His disciples when He found them asleep. Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. I let that sink in. 1 hour of prayer, just to be victorious over temptation. Jesus saw this need, but apparently the disciples hadn't. Jesus prayed, they slept. God had revealed that his disciples needed to store up prayer power, as they would soon be severely tempted. I live in the same difficult world. Could it be possible that even an old retired man needed to relearn how to pray for an hour just to face the day victoriously? When Jesus told his disciples that their spirits were willing, I had always thought he was giving them a compliment. Now I saw that he wasn't. A willing spirit isn't enough. Many Christians are willing, but we need to learn how to have strong spirits, strong enough to do battle with the flesh. The flesh always wants to control the spirit. Never had I known that more keenly than in those pre-dawn wake-up struggles. Our body's natural desire wants to tell us when and how to pray, but the flesh never leads us in the right direction. I also took note that Jesus' prayers were always answered, so I needed to learn how he prayed. Hebrews 5-7 reminded me of that. While Christ was here on earth, he pleaded with God, praying with tears and agony of soul, and God heard his prayers because of his strong desire to obey God at all times. So Jesus prayed earnestly and with a heart set to obey. That was the kind of praying I had to relearn. To do that, my heart had to waken to the reality of God and his power. David came to know God and experience his rescuing power through persistent prayer. God permitted him to get into situations where his only choices were learn or perish. So David said, I rise before dawn and cry for help. Psalm 119, verse 147. Yes, I decided there must be something important about getting up early in the morning to pray. The flesh doesn't like it, and it will always groan and complain. Sorry, flesh, you've had your way long enough. Then the morning of awakening came. While standing on the top of the hill and looking into the dark sky, heaven opened. It was as if lightning penetrated my heart. Fire flamed brilliant hot in my breast. I was alive again. I mean, really alive. I felt as if I'd been translated into heaven. The hilltop became a launching site. Now I had wings to soar like an eagle. Isaiah 40:31. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with eagles' wings. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. This verse became a living reality within me. There wasn't anything I couldn't do. The tired, weary Merlin Carothers was gone. God had swept me back into his arms. The guilt vanished, and a double portion of joy filled my heart. Was I ever awake now?